My name is Sylvia. I'm passionate about languages, English in particular. Welcome to my world of English. Hello everyone, it's me again. It's the World of English podcast, the next episode and the next subject. As you have probably noticed, the episodes of the World of English podcast are intermingled, which means that one time it is an engaging story, I hope. Once it is an interview, just like it was last time. And the next time, the episode is more functional. And this is what we are going to listen to today. I mean, this episode is also going to be more functional because I'd like to talk about a subject that is very useful. And hopefully, this is the idea of it. This is the general idea. I hope you will make use of the information that you're going to listen to in a while, and I hope it'll help you to study the language better. As you can probably understand, and as you can probably know, the inspiration for this episode also came from my classes, because the things I'm talking about, they are the things that are filtered through my experience. So whatever comes to my mind, whatever I see, or whatever mistake I can observe that keeps repeating itself every single time or every single lesson, this is something that I'd like to share with you, because I don't want you to make this mistake once again. And the general title of today's meeting is the structure, because it is very important for myself to teach you, to talk to you, not only about words and expressions and the grammar, but it is very important to me to also tell you how to study the language. This is the great problem. This is the thing that I observe every single time, that although you spend so many years and although you spend so much time studying the language, the problem is that the success does not come, or it is not that great as you would expect it to be. And there comes this frustration, right? So you invest your time, you invest your energy, but what you get as this result is not what you actually want. The problem is that many students and many learners do not know how to study the language. They study the words, they repeat what they hear, they revise the material, they try to memorize all the information, but it is to no avail. There is no effect, and there comes this frustration. And believe me, if you know how to do it, if you know how to study the language, you will be more effective in your work. And then the process of learning will get smoother, and you will simply get the success that you want to get. Let me come back to the title of today's meeting, to the subject of today's meeting, which is the structure. What I have observed, and as I said, it gets repeated itself very, very often, is that 70% of the learners of the English language do not realize, they do not know that there is this difference in structures of the two languages. And when I say the two languages, what I mean here is this difference between English and Polish. It seems, when you look at it, right? So it seems, when you hear it, it seems like an obvious thing, right? Because we know that English and Polish, they are these two different languages. So they are governed by different rules, and there is different grammar. So it is so all easy. But it is only easy when we talk about it. It is only easy in theory, but in practice, there is this huge problem with it, which stops the learning process. And I will explain just right now to you what I mean and where the problem is. So as you start studying the language, and here I would say, like any language, of course, I can only talk about English, but I can just presume that the idea that I'm talking about today, it applies to all languages, foreign languages in the world. Because when you start studying a given language, English in this respect, you have to know, you have to realize that there is this different system of the language and there is this different structure. So when we come to studying a language with the knowledge of our mother tongues, it is something that will actually stop us from developing, because we have all these habits, we have all these structures, we have all these rusty structures, I would even say, in our minds, which impose themselves on what we should be learning and they stop us from understanding that in order to speak the language, in order to speak English fluently, you need to get rid of these structures. Very often when I hear people speaking English, I actually hear people speaking Polish. What I mean here is that they actually, they use English vocabulary or they use English expressions, but the way they build their sentences and the way they think, it is still in Polish. Well, some of you may just react, or some of you may just say, but how can we do it, right? Because Polish is the only language that we know, and this is only natural that we base our knowledge on the Polish language. Well, I can say, of course, I understand it. So, of course, when we just come to the class, we come with this knowledge of Polish. But please try, and this is something that you can do, really, if you have the proper knowledge of the structure of the other language, but please try to get rid of Polish as soon as possible, and please try not to get so attached to it. And today I'd like to talk about a few subjects, a few ideas like this, these key ideas that will, in my understanding, will help you come to the learning process in a better way. And in this respect, you will simply become more successful. So the greatest difference or differences in the structure of the Polish language and the English language is this difference in the usage of the word be and have. I always say that Polish is very possessive, right? Because everything in Polish, many things in Polish we have, right? So have, like this word applies to different sentences in which, of course, we talk about possessing, right? So we have like a car, we have a family, we have children. But have is also used in Polish in other context, the context which does not mean that you physically have something or physically possess something. But in English, very often, in this very context, we will not use the word have, but we will use the word be. What I mean here is talking about your age, for instance, yes? So you say that I am 20 years old, for example. We do not use the word have here, and I hear it very, very, very often. So remember, right, I am 20 years old. Another expression that would be, there is unemployment in Poland, for instance. In Polish, what we would put there is also this possessive verb have. Just another example is like be right and wrong. If there is somebody that you agree with, you can say that they are right. Yeah? So there is a discussion and somebody says something, we agree with them and we say you are right. When we don't agree with somebody, we might say you are wrong. Again, here in English, we would use the verb be, but in Polish, in the very same context, we would use the word have. And this is the very great mistake that gets repeated itself. I hear it very often that although people know the expression like right, although people know the expression wrong, they would still put the verb have in there. And of course, they would make themselves communicative. I would understand what they mean, but the sentences that they would produce, they would be incorrect, and they would have this mistake. And of course, what I venture to do and what I want to do, apart from teaching the language, I want people to speak a good variety, a good standard of the language, right? So I don't want them just to be communicative, but I just want them to produce correct sentences. And if you know that there is this difference in these two systems of the language, right? There is this difference between the Polish language and the English language. Very often, let me say it again, let me repeat it, very often in the Polish context. So in Polish, we would use the have verb. Very often in the very same context, we would use be in English. Another subject that presents a huge problem, it is called, I can call it because it is a very broad subject, it is called prepositions. And my advice here is to learn, I have repeated that on many occasions. My advice here is to learn the whole structures, as I said, right? For instance, this is the expression I have just used in one of the meetings recently, like seek revenge on somebody. Yeah, so you learn the whole expression, that not only just the word revenge, but also the seek, and then we've got this preposition on, right? Another example, the easier example would be like depend on, yes, or rely on, or be afraid of. So we learn the whole structure, we learn the whole the jigsaw puzzle, as I call it, the whole block or a brick of the language. You can call it in any way. But if you know those little pieces, then it is easier to produce full sentences instead of if you just know one single word, and then you are supposed to glue, so to say, sorry for the expression, but that's exactly what happens. Like the learners are trying to glue those little elements, and they try to put them in one piece. And in this very subject of prepositions, there is this great problem of this preposition on, because in Polish we would use this preposition in many, many occasions, and very often, and this is the advice that I give to you, this is the advice that I offer, very often if you are compelled, because you are the speaker of Polish and you feel that you want to use on, because this is what your Polish experience tells you, please try to use this expression at instead of on. For instance, where were you last night? I was at a party. What did you do over the weekend, right? I went to a concert, a great concert, so I was at a concert. Why are you late? Somebody can ask you. Well, because I was waiting at the traffic lights, okay? Another example of this sort is, what is he doing? Where is he? Well, he is not at home because he's waiting at the bus stop. So you see, in all of these respects, we would use at instead of on. So the Polish language, the Polish knowledge would just force us to say on, but in these very respects, we would rather use at than on. Of course, when I say to you that please use at instead of on, like every single time, of course that wouldn't mean that every single example that we have in our mind in Polish with the on word, like depend on, for instance, I've just used it. Yeah, so sometimes it can be translated the very same way, but the chances are that more often you would use at instead of on. So please don't make this direct copy from the Polish language into the English language. When we want to continue with the subject of prepositions, there is another difference between this usage of prepositions, between Polish and English. So there are also such instances in English where there is no preposition, but there is a very visible preposition in Polish. Very simple examples, and a very often made mistake is contact somebody. Yeah, so you can just enter your office and you can say, sorry, I do not have time because I have this very important client that I need to contact. Yeah, or I need to call him. That's another thing, because we contact somebody, we call somebody. Yeah. And in Polish, we would put this preposition there, but there is no preposition in English. Please remember about this. But on the other hand, there is this example where there is no preposition in Polish and there is a preposition in English, because please remember from now on that we listen to something every single time. We listen to music, we listen to our favorite band, we listen to the teacher, we listen to this episode of the World of English podcast, for instance. In Polish, there is no to, but in English, there is to every single time. So once again, a huge difference. You contact somebody, you call somebody, that is English. But you listen to somebody instead of just listen the way we would use it in Polish. When I talk to people, when I listen to them, there you go, I see this visible problem very often that students, the speakers of English, do not control verbs and nouns. So they know a given word, but they do not know what kind of word that is. So they don't know whether it is a verb or it is a noun. And because they don't know it, they use it in the incorrect context. Let me use just word suffer, for instance. Yes, suffer is the verb. Yes, so you can suffer from something. You can suffer from a disease. You can suffer from headache. You can suffer from flu. But if you want to use this word as a noun, you are not allowed to, okay? Because this is a verb. Sometimes the verb and the noun, they are exactly the same, yes? For instance, there is this word envy. Envy is both a verb and a noun. So I can say there is a lot of envy among people, let's put it this way. Or I can say I envy you, yes, something, right? because you have this great knowledge of something, or you have this great possession of something. This control, whether you are using a noun or a verb, is a very important one. I always repeat it. Please start controlling your language. Start controlling what you've got to say. Start controlling the structure. Otherwise, you will be speaking English. That is, you will be using these English expressions, but you will keep on thinking in Polish and you will be still producing Polish structures. And if you stick to that, you will never be a fluent speaker of English. And this is what we want, right? We want you to get to be these fluent speakers of English. When it comes to these types of words, right? Like there are those nouns and verbs. There is also the general structure of the sentence. And this general structure of an English sentence is hidden in something I call subject, verb, object. When I share this information with my students, I can see that their eyes just open because they are not aware of it. And this is the absolutely key thing here. You cannot be a fluent speaker of English. You cannot be a good speaker of English if you do not have this knowledge, if you don't know how to produce proper sentences in English, how they are structured in the proper way. And I have just used this structure. It is subject, verb, object. Here, as I talk about the structure, I talk about the most important difference, in my understanding, the most important difference between Polish and English. And the difference is that in the Polish language, what we have is we have those endings to the words. That's why even if we put these words in different order, so if we start with a verb, then we put the noun, or sometimes we can start with a noun and then put the verb, everything is understood. Of course, some structures are more natural, right? But when it comes to this understanding level, nothing happens. Why? Because we've got this ending to the word. So the ending never changes if I put it in a different position in a sentence. So I will never confuse a given word with another word because I've got this ending. In English, on the other hand, there are no endings. Yes. So like there are these words that have the same form, they look the same in various structures. Yes, I can say I like, then I can say you like, then we say we like, they like, and the word like always looks the same. And that is why this structure of the subject, verb, object is so important. You always have to begin a sentence with the noun, that is the subject. Then you have to follow with a verb, with this activity, and then you have to add like the rest of the sentence. Of course, I do understand and I know that sometimes there can be these slight modifications, but for the start, if you want to control your language, if you want to control your speech, please stick to this structure, right? Please remember it, because from now on, I do believe that it will help you very much. Every single time that you want to say something in English, you would need the noun, the doer of the action, so to say, then you would need this action. So what is happening, or what happened, or what will happen. And then you will finish with object. So you will finish with this extra information to the sentence. Please believe me, it's the key information. If you stick to it, definitely you will not make mistakes. And of course, here, I wouldn't be myself if I didn't talk about the inversion here, because this inversion that is in Polish, it also does work in English, but it works only in certain aspects. I don't know if you have heard such sentences as "never in my life have I seen such a beautiful girl," for instance, or "not once did he look at me." Yes, there is inversion. You can see that there is this change in this word order, but this inversion is very specific, as I said. You can use it only in very specific situations. You will use it with very specific expressions. Most often you will use it with the negative meaning of the sentence, like never, not once, never before. And this is used just to emphasize this negative element. Yes, this something what you want to say. But on a regular basis, when you think about inversion, it is not used in English, because in English, when you use this everyday language, you would stick to this structure. Let me repeat it once again. So that would be subject, verb, object. And when it comes to the structure of the sentences, when it comes to the proper use of the words, I would like to mention another another thing here that is called, that has this name of uncountable nouns. I'm sure you heard this expression. I also myself use this expression, like uncountable nouns, very often in my class, but only recently. It was only recently that I realized that there is a problem with it, because the learners do not actually know what that means when I say uncountable. I mean, they know that the word uncountable means that there is this noun that does not have this plural form. But when there is this uncountable noun in a sentence, it means that everything stays uncountable, so to say. So that it applies to all the words that are in the sentence. So there is this example that I'd like to share with you, and it is as follows. This information is very important. So the word information is uncountable, but also the expression before that is uncountable. So it is this, not these. And then the verb stays in the form typical of the singular form. So it is. So as you see, there are three elements that you have to think about. So you have to say this information is very important. And this is how you make a correct sentence. Another example, very useful everyday example that you can use is your hair looks wonderful. Yeah. So here we just see the two words that are in this uncountable or singular form, so to say, because it is the noun like hair, and the verb looks because it is this third person. I'd like to finish this meeting. I'd like to finish this episode with talking about the future a little bit. Well, I decided to put this one, the future, at the very end, because I hope that in this way we will, so to say, like enter this future of this good study of the language and this great success when it comes to studying English. And I decided to talk about this future because, as again, I saw that there is this great problem, and it gets repeated itself. And where is the problem? So when you talk about the future in English, many people know that there is this tense, right, with will, and all you have to do is just have to put this will, right? So then you say, I will go, yes, or I will buy, or she will come, or they will visit us. Yeah, very simple actually, because you do not change this form of the verb. You just put will and then the next verb. But very often what I hear is that people would use will plus be because they think that this will and the be is the future. No, guys, will is enough. So when you just put will and then you put almost any other verb that you would like to use, then you will produce a well-structured sentence in English. So you will say, I will visit you tomorrow, or I will call you tomorrow, or you will meet me and we will have a great time. So, as I said, just to leave you with this positive feeling, I hope you will study English the proper way from now on. I hope that will happen. Please stick to it. Please remember about all the things I have told you today. They are very useful. They are very important. And without this knowledge of how to study the language, and without this awareness of how these two systems of the language, I mean, how Polish and English, how they differ, you will not become successful. And this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to be. I want you to be successful when it comes to studying and learning English. Thank you for being with me. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.